Well, it's been a while since we've been able to do this. Analyse a player that's coming to Arsenal that we're genuinely excited about. We're going to talk about Zubimendi, but we're also going to chat about other Arsenal news, because when I look at the Zubimendi deal, when I look at the way he could be used, when I look at what PSG did against us, when I look at some of the players we've been linked to, I think Arsenal could be reinventing their midfield a little bit. I think Declan Rice has a part to play in this too. So it's not going to be really a player breakdown. It's going to be an analysis of what Arsenal's midfield could look like next season, because I think Arteta is giving us some ideas as to some of the tweaks and changes he could be making. Look, all this is with a view to Arsenal eventually winning one of the big ones, the Premier, the Champions League, and hell, pick up the Carabao Cup and FA Cup on the way. But I think we all feel, after watching this season, the problems Arsenal have had, there has to be a reinvention of a lot of areas. The striker, the left winger, sure, but the midfield shouldn't be ignored. And the fact that Zubimendi comes in, I think does help us massively. I'm going to show you why. But let's firstly go through all the news, because Fabrizio Romano here did confirm that Arsenal have agreed a deal to sign Zubimendi. He gave it the here we go. Now, how about this from David Ornstein on NBC? It was aggregated by Doc. He says, if an agreement over an extension can't be agreed with Thomas Partey, Arsenal will look at replacements, and they have already started seeing players. So it's not really... Zubimendi is part of the Jorginho replacement. Jorginho goes, Zubimendi comes in. It's a pretty expensive replacement for someone who's just a squad player. If Partey stays, then fine, you're sorted. But if he goes, Arsenal will look to bring someone in. Then you've got Nwaneri and Vieira next season. Vieira returning from Porto, where he's done well. Of course, we signed him from there in the first place. He's been on loan. He's done well there. That's another option, and I think Arteta and Arsenal want to see him in pre-season, because one of the problems we've had is unlocking a defence, and Fabio Vieira, maybe with another year of regular football, could be a part of solving that next season. But then you've got Nwaneri, a year older, and when you look at the fact that we want to add a left winger, a striker, and you've got Havertz and Jesus and Martinelli and Trossard. Trossard's apparently been offered a new deal. You got Saka. There's quite a lot of forwards. They might not be the answer. They might need some help and some upgrading on, but there's a lot of players there, so maybe Nwaneri's minutes will come more in midfield, and that would be quite a big change from what we've seen this season, because Nwaneri has already been given the opportunity. Certainly wasn't when Ødegaard was injured, and Vieira, like I said, brings us something a little bit different. And then you've got all the 10s we've been linked to. Oyan Sanset, this was aggregated by Football Transfers. Mikel Arteta is apparently obsessed with the prolific Athletic Bilbao star Oyan Sanset. His numbers are sensational this season. The African Gooner letting us know that Arsenal have entered discussions with Leicester for Bilal El Kanous. We of course talked about on the Goonerverse too. That could be a 25 to 30 million pounds signing. That number 10, he's looked good at Leicester City. We know they're getting relegated. Could Arsenal see an opportunity there? And we know that back in January we wanted Sver Nipan, though according to Fabrizio Romano, Villa are advanced in negotiations for the 18-year-old, and that they're likely to win the race over Man City, Girona and Arsenal. So you've had quite a lot there in terms of potential incomings, whether it be Zubimendi, the replacement for Thomas Partey, unless he signs on, and the links to more number 10 players, which I think we need. I also think, interestingly, Declan Rice his position's evolved. If I showed you the midfield three, and we're going to talk on the tactical pad in a sec, do you know what? Let's do it now. If I show you this Arsenal midfield right now, you associate Ødegaard with the 10, Partey as the 6, and Rice sits somewhere in between, bursting forward, running onto late attacks, able to press, but dropping deep, so that Arsenal can press as a 4-4-2. That's how you talk about the left 8. But more and more, this position is becoming more even with Ødegaard's. I don't think there's a 10 and an 8. I think you've got either two advanced 8s, and the way that Declan Rice's position has evolved, getting much further forward, you're almost finding that Ødegaard is dropping deeper, and Rice is more often than not making runs in behind. We saw that with the Bournemouth goal, but he's making the kind of runs to get in behind and stretch the game for Arsenal, which you'd expect a number 10 to make. So the dynamic is evolving there. We've got some evidence of it. Let me show you the average positions against Crystal Palace in the 2-2 draw. Rice almost as high as Martin Ødegaard there. As you can see, the midfielders 8, 5 and 41. Declan Rice right next to Ødegaard's number 8. Let's look at Bournemouth, where he got that goal. He's even just a touch more advanced than Ødegaard in the average positions. Remember, we didn't spend the whole game on the ball. That second half was tricky for Arsenal. He even came off, but when on the pitch, he was almost as high. No, he was higher than Martin Ødegaard, in fact. And against PSG, the same. Right next to Marino, our striker, and Martin Ødegaard, quite high up the pitch. The average positions are telling us that Declan Rice is getting forward more, and it kind of makes sense when you look at some of his numbers. In 101 games for Arsenal, he has 15 goals and 20 assists. Now, a lot of them will have come from set pieces, sure, I'm talking about the assists, by the way, not the goals. But he's actually shown a degree of productivity. And when I look at him getting that goal on the edge of the penalty area against Man United, stepping up and scoring those 2 free kicks against Real Madrid, and actually then getting that goal against Bournemouth where he makes the run beyond Ødegaard, you see Ødegaard's passing range from deep and where he can have a real impact. And you can see Declan Rice's driving runs and actually starting to show an instinct for goal. He scored against PSV as well at the Emirates. He's been getting in amongst the goals, Declan Rice, and maybe this is the next evolution. He's not just going from a 6 to a box-to-box 8 who gets forward simply to press. There's actually a degree of output, and he can be someone who can be quite decisive in the final third. I kind of wonder why we haven't seen more of him in the right 8 like we saw against Man City at the Etihad. But anyway, let's bring this all back to Martin Zubimendi. And what I want to show you here on the tactical pad is the expectation for Zubimendi. We thought Partey was going to leave, and we thought Zubimendi would simply slot in, and there you go, that's your midfield. We've talked about the dynamic maybe changing, but ultimately that would be the 3 on paper. And look, I still think we will see probably quite a lot of this. 2 technicians in Ødegaard and Zubimendi. Partey's a technician in himself, but Zubimendi very much known for what he does on the ball. And then you've got Declan Rice, who has a little bit of steel, a little bit of balance, and we talked about him quite a lot just now. I do think there's a chance this evolves quite a bit. Could you have Zubimendi as one of the 8s? And we could talk about how this works, but let's talk about him as the left 8 just for a second. We actually did a video on this a year ago, back when actually we weren't even called the Goonerverse. I think we were still the James B channel. The name was, or the title of the video was, Did Arteta Reveal His Potential Zubimendi Plan? As you can see by the thumbnail, Jorginho very much highlighted as a part of it. And why is that? Because I made this video after we beat Liverpool 3-1. And as you can see from this graphic made by Canon Stats, Jorginho played in the left 8 and he had a really unique role. In a bid not to move Declan Rice away from the 6th position where, you know, he needed to kind of get into real defensive areas to protect the likes of Saliba and Gabriel, Jorginho played as the left 8, but allowed us to still have that double pivot out possession, his build up in possession, but also unlock a little bit of creativity from the left 8 as well. Martinelli, I remember, had a good game. He scored in that game, and the left hand side was ticking, and Zinchenko as well actually did well playing in a game. You think how much we've evolved since then. Zinchenko very much did his thing at left back in that role. There was a lot of ball progression down that side of the pitch. Jorginho, as you can see on the left, you can see progressive passes. You can see from that left 8 space where he was able to combine at times out on the touchline, making things happen and getting the ball up the pitch for Arsenal. And you can see in the middle here where his passes received, where yes, he was doing it from left and right 8 positions at times, but still able to be a part of build-up, giving Arsenal flexibility in how they moved up the pitch. And as you can see on the right of this graphic, his defensive actions weren't just when Arsenal dropped deep into a shape. He was able to help press and be on the front foot and be aggressive and actually get forward in the way that Jorginho is not really known for doing, and making clear interceptions, tackles and defensive actions in that left 8 area as well. So Jorginho's his game was evolved for one match against Liverpool. We saw a tweak in the way he was used, and I just wonder A, why Arteta didn't do it more, but B, whether Zubimendi could be asked to do the same. So we go back to the tactical pad. Could you see Zubimendi playing that role with Arsenal, getting the likes of Lewis Skelly inverting, and Zubimendi getting forward into those pockets? But you could mix this up in quite a lot of ways, because it doesn't have to be Declan Rice playing. It could be Thomas Partey. And that maybe explains why you can add a Zubimendi but still keep a Partey, and then you're adding different varieties to our midfield. There are different ways Arsenal can be using these players. Could you even, this might sound crazy, pull Ødegaard out and bring Rice in? Now I know on paper that's 3 6s, Rice, Partey, Zubimendi, but in theory, but practically it's Zubimendi in his passing range in slightly higher areas, Declan Rice bombing up and down that pitch supporting Bukayo Saka, Thomas Partey sitting alongside Lewis Skelly. But we know that Arsenal can mix this up a lot because you can get Martinelli more on the inside. I liked seeing him central against Liverpool the other day. I thought it was, he got the header. I think he has always been better from central spaces, getting the ball, not, yes, out on the touchline can do damage, but I think in central spaces he can be dangerous. Can you get Lewis Skelly bombing up and down the pitch? We saw playing for England on his debut when he scored. He can make those runs and he can be a threat from that area, but we also know if you pull him out that we have Calafiori somewhere in this squad. Here he is. And look what he did against PSG, getting up and down the pitch. almost putting it on a plate for, well, he did put it on a plate for Bukayo Saka, we should have scored, but I thought he had a real impact from that area of the pitch too. And when you're looking at some of the wingers we're linked with, maybe actually having more creative players out on the wing, not adding necessarily a 10, but adding more creators out wide and allowing Lewis Skelly and Calafiori to get forward. You've got Ben White who can do it down that side on the right as well. Maybe that's an evolution for Arsenal. But the point is, Zubimendi coming in doesn't mean he has to play as the 6, otherwise we're not going to see him in the team. I think there's a chance that we've seen from Mikel Arteta and Arsenal exactly how to do this before. How you can have a more sitting 6 in a Partey or a Rice, someone who's maybe a bit combative, someone who's maybe got a little bit more ability to cover ground in that area, and you get a creative player on that left 8 side along with Martin Odegaard on the right, and you've almost got kind of similar attributes. Yes, Odegaard is more of a 10 and more a final third killer, and we haven't really seen that this season. He's probably got that more than Zubimendi, but we've shown in how Jorginho is used and how we can see on the tactical pad that Zubimendi could play that role in quite a unique way for us, and I'd quite like to see that. If you want further evidence that this is absolutely possible, this is PSG's midfield against us: João Neves, Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz. Let me ask you, which one of those 3 is a 10? Which one of those is a natural number 10 that has that killer pass, that has that flair, final third decisive quality? Yes, they're all quality players and can do something. But the reality is that Doué, Barker, Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, in their quality, they're able to create too. And that midfield 3 can sometimes sit off, be a part of build-up with Hakimi and Mendes driving through the middle of the pitch. With Calafiori, with Ben White, even Timber, Lewis Skelly, I think we can offer that too in this team. So Zubimendi doesn't just come into a side that is looking to replace a 6 and on we go again. I think he can give us some unique attributes in that area of the pitch. I think the way Declan Rice is being used, the way Odegaard I think has evolved his position in the last year or two, the players we've been linked with, suggests to me that Mikel Arteta is refreshing and rebuilding the midfield a little bit for next season. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Zubimendi will be an Arsenal player and I can't wait to see him in an Arsenal shirt next season. We can start to look ahead, especially after, what was a disastrous end to the campaign. I think we can start to look ahead at what the ideas are. And there's some here that I'm definitely excited about. Catch you in a bit.